Welcome to The C-Bomb. This confidence podcast is for real modern-day women who are ready to rid themselves of what's holding them back. My name's Rebecca Sparks. I'm a confidence and life transition coach. I'm the founder of The Daily Guru, and I'm your host for The C-Bomb. This podcast tackles all the tricky aspects of lacking self-confidence and is here to help you make some necessary and powerful changes in your life. Each episode, we dive into all the gritty topics which contribute to lacking self-confidence. So if you're wanting to radically improve your self-esteem and overall life experience, then you are in the right place. So let's get started. Hello and welcome. I am so excited to have you here and to be sharing episode 6 of the C-Bomb with you. I can't believe we're already at episode 6. So far, we've talked about some really interesting topics around mastering your true self-confidence. These have included mastering your mind, people-pleasing, and this really unhelpful habit that we can sometimes do and how to overcome that, building unstoppable self-discipline, because this is one of the foundations for confidence, being mean to ourselves and over-apologizing, and why these two habits occur for us and how to transition them. And this week's topic is just as pivotal when it comes to building or rebuilding authentic self-confidence. This week, I'm going to be taking you step by step through a coaching technique which helps you coach yourself through any challenge or situation that you are having in your life and to begin to create quite significant changes for yourself. Now, I know that might sound like a really big statement, but as you continue to listen, you're going to realize there is complete truth to this statement, as this is one of the hero coaching techniques I use with all of my confidence coaching clients. This is a technique that is pivotal to creating significant change, and one that you can use in any situation. Also, if you have people in your life that you influence or have a contribution to their growth, then this is something that you can then share with others. So whether you are a manager or a leader and you are developing your staff, if you're a mother and you're growing, your baby's minds, or if there are other people in your life that you contribute to their growth, this is a really fantastic technique to learn and to share with others. I was taught this powerful technique by Brooke Castillo, and I now share it with all of my clients and throughout all of the work that I do. It really is one of the key principles to building true, authentic self-confidence. Now, this coaching method is called the self-coaching method because that's exactly what it allows you to do. But before I dive straight into the method, I want to give you a little bit of background as to why this method is so critical for us to use in today's day and age. So, as a species, we have evolved really significantly over the last 2 centuries. Previously, our human needs were primarily focused on A, how to avoid pain, and B, how to seek comfort. And we wanted to do this with the least amount of effort in order for us to remain comfortable, get fed, feel connected, and to basically stay alive. But in today's day and age, these are no longer needs for most of us. Now, I say most of us because obviously there is still a significant issue with poverty around the globe. But for the purpose of this podcast, I'm talking to the circumstances of most of our listeners, which they can relate to. And that is the fact that the world has evolved so significantly, especially in the last 20 years, that no longer do we have to put too much effort into being safe, getting fed, being warm and comfortable. We've created such a high level of comfort for ourselves that there's very little motivation to create these anymore, which leaves our internal motivators space to start focusing on something else. Innately, our body knows we can survive with very little amount of effort. So we have begun to evolve and begin to focus on something else. And that is the pursuit of fulfillment. It's the pursuit of purpose. This is something I'm seeing more and more across the coaching work that I do and the workshops that I do. People's motivation around contributing to something greater than themselves is now reaching incredibly high in their personal lives and also on their career wish list. In actual fact, much higher than salary expectations at times. But what this is bringing up is the fact that if you want to pursue fulfillment or purpose, We have to be motivated to do the exact opposite of comfort and safety, which is the way we've behaved almost on default up until now. We have to give up familiarity. We have to give up comfort zone. We have to give up some elements of, safety, not to the significant level of, caveman days of keeping ourselves alive, but safety is in social safetiness and safetiness around our expectations. And we have to give this up in order to grow. We have to give up the unconscious state of pleasure seeking and responding to situations, and instead learn to embrace emotional challenges and seek out change. This new driver within us, which is as a result of this evolution, is challenging us to evolve past our current state and habitual patterns. And in all honesty, most of us are not responding well. So we're starting to feel an urge, a need for something, which is fulfillment, but our habitual patterns are trying to keep us focused on comfort and safety. So there's a conflict. And this is part of the reason why so many people are feeling stuck and unfulfilled and dissatisfied with parts of their life. It's not because anything's wrong. In fact, I'm sure many of them would think to themselves, why am I so ungrateful? I have a good job, a nice partner, an okay social life. I'm really comfortable. Why am I complaining? And that's exactly at the heart of it. We no longer seek comfort. A good job would have met the needs of being comfortable and safe. And if that need is no longer a key driver for us in the same way that it used to be, a good job suddenly becomes very dissatisfactory. And if we're seeking fulfillment as the need, it means that a good job needs to be much more than just good. It needs to have meaning. It needs to have purpose. But in order to do that, we have to go against our default ways of behaving, and that is to move away from comfort and safety. Can you see how this is such a challenge? We are now in the process of evolving past our habitual patterns, and we're now seeking out and wanting to change. And this is the exact type of discomfort which is being expressed globally right now by so many people, which makes the self-coaching method so necessary. As humans, it is our privilege to be able to think about anything that we want to think about. We have the ability to understand that our thoughts create our feelings, and we understand that if our thoughts and feelings aren't creating what we want, they're the perfect place to pay attention to if we're wanting to change any aspect of our life. And so, to coach ourselves, this is exactly where we're going to begin with the self-coaching method. Now, if you have a pen and paper nearby, I highly recommend you take it out and start making some notes here, because I'm going to take you through the first component of the self-coaching method. And that is the fact that all aspects of our life are categorized into 5 key areas. And they are, firstly, circumstances. Secondly, our thoughts. Thirdly, our feelings. Fourth, our actions. And fifth, our results. So all aspects of our lives are categorized into these 5 key areas: circumstances, thoughts, feelings, actions, results. There is nothing in the world that cannot be categorized and understood within this framework. Once you see how things are categorized, you can now very easily see how your interaction with these determine the outcomes you are getting in your life. Now, let me explain that to you through an exercise. I want you to think of a situation in your life which you are unhappy with. This might be an experience or a challenge you are having on a regular basis. This might be a conflict or an issue you're experiencing with a person. This might be something you are struggling with yourself. Whatever it is, I want you to write down what that situation is. And once you've written that down on a piece of paper or on your laptop, I want you to write next to this word, circumstance. You have just completed the first step of the self-coaching model, highlighting the circumstance which you would like to change or be different. At this stage, you do not need to go into the ins and outs of why this is occurring and how it makes you feel. Just for step 1, it's important to remain focused on the facts of the situation. Circumstances are the things which happen in the world, and these circumstances are often outside of our control. So when you're thinking of your situation, you're not writing down your thoughts about it, you're not writing down your feelings about it, you're just writing down the facts of the situation. So I'm going to share an example with you here so that you can fully understand it. And I'm going to share an example from one of my coaching clients that we've worked through together. So her circumstance was her boss was constantly late for meetings, and this was something that was happening on a regular basis. So these are facts. The boss was supposed to be at a meeting at a certain time and did not show up on a regular basis. This was happening time and time again. So they're the facts about the situation. So now that we've highlighted the circumstance of the situation and what is outside of our control, we can move on to step 2. Actually, before I do just want to say one more thing about circumstances, and that's the component about what's inside and outside of your control. Because often when I share this with a client for the very first time, what isn't in their control, this can sometimes be confusing for people or quite challenging to accept. So ultimately, we have to understand that we are never in control of other people. We are not in control of other people's thoughts. We're not in control of other people's feelings. We're not in control of other people's actions, their choices, their words, their ideas, their behaviors. None of this is in our control. Of course, we can influence people via our own actions and our own choices, but we cannot make anyone do anything that they don't want to do. Now, this can be very difficult to swallow at times, especially when we feel like our request is so justified, but not accepting the fact that these elements are outside of our control often brings us more upset and challenge than the actual experience. So it's really important that we understand that other people and these circumstances are not in our control, because when we resist that causes us discomfort. So what are we in control of? We are in control of our own thoughts, our own feelings, our own actions, our choices, our words, our ideas, our behaviors. Okay? So this leads me to step 2 of the self-coaching model, and that is thoughts, your thoughts about the situation. So I now want you to go back to your circumstance, which you've written down on your piece of paper, and I want you to ask yourself, what thought do you think on a regular basis when you think about this situation? Now, I want you to be as honest as possible. No one else is going to see this but you. And if you are as honest as you can be, you're going to have, this is going to be much more productive. So even if you're not proud of your thoughts, jot them down. This honestly will help you really take advantage of this model. So what sentences, what thoughts come to mind regularly when you think of this particular circumstance? So let me give you an example of what that might look like using the example from my client earlier. So the circumstance was her boss is constantly late for meetings. This is something that happens on a regular basis. The thought that she used to think about this situation is she is very disrespectful with everyone's time. She does this because she doesn't care about anyone but herself. She is self-absorbed. This is the reason why our projects aren't succeeding right now. So there's a number of thoughts there. Ordinarily with the model, you would break them down and just do one thought at a time, but I'm happy to keep these in here at the moment just for this exercise. Now, as I said, I don't want you to judge your thoughts on this right now. And I definitely don't want you to start analyzing them. That's not the objective at this stage. I just want you to be completely honest with yourself about what thoughts fill your head when this challenging circumstance arises. So now that we have the circumstance written down, below that, I want you to write the thought which follows. And now that you've done that, we're going to move to step 3. And that is to explore the feelings which follow your thoughts. And here is a really important element to understand about the self-coaching model. The reason why we explore our thoughts before our feelings is because everything we do begins with a thought. Absolutely everything. And so if you're experiencing a feeling which you don't like, we trace it backwards to understand the thought that you had before that. What meaning did you give this situation in order for it to have that outcome, that feeling? So write down underneath your thoughts what feelings you experience when you think the thoughts attached to your circumstance. So let me share an example with you again, and I will use my client's situation for you. So the circumstance, her boss is always late for meetings. This happens regularly. The thoughts she has about that: this is very disrespectful of everyone's time. She does this because she doesn't care about anybody. She's self-absorbed. This is why we're not succeeding in our projects. The feelings she had about that was anger and frustration, resentment, overwhelm, disappointment. Can you see how, having described the thoughts that she was thinking in this situation, that these feelings would be really understandable? You could completely empathize that she was having those feelings when she was thinking those thoughts about that situation. I'm not going to be feeling excited or passionate or happy about a situation if I'm feeling disrespected, am I? And my client had that exact experience. So these emotions can be very understandable. 3 of the 5 elements of the self-coaching model are now completed. We now have the circumstance, we have the thought, and we have the feeling. So now I want us to move on to step 4, and this is where we explore our current actions related to the circumstance. And I want you to write down what actions you take in your particular situation when you think the thoughts you've thought and you feel the feelings that you've felt. How do you act? And so again, I'm going to refer to the example. The circumstance is her boss being very late for meetings regularly. The thoughts she has about that is that it's very disrespectful. She's self-absorbed, and that this is the reason why the projects aren't working. The feelings she has is anger, frustration, resentment, overwhelm, and disappointed. When she feels those feelings, the actions which used to follow were she distanced herself in the meetings. She wasn't forthcoming with her answers and the questions that she would answer or solutions she would offer. She was quite in her head because she was so frustrated and didn't want to say something that she would regret. So have a think about how you behave when you think those feelings. How do you act? And now finally, I want us to move to step 5 of the self-coaching model. What are the results of the outcome of your situation? What do you see in your life as an effect of your actions? So right underneath actions, I want you to write results and write what you're currently getting. So let's finish off the example that I shared with you. So having been through her circumstance with her boss being late, having thought to herself it was really disrespectful and that she was self-absorbed and that this was the reason why her projects weren't succeeding. She felt angry, resentful, disappointed. When she did this, she remained distant in meetings. She didn't contribute. She was very much in her head, and she didn't really input very much. The result of this was the team meetings were really unproductive. They weren't moving ahead with their projects as a team, and they weren't working very effectively together. Can you see how this would be an outcome of the actions that I shared? You can, can't you? If you're feeling really withdrawn and resentful, then this is going to be the results. You're now not contributing. So it makes complete sense. Now, here's the really interesting part of going through the self-coaching model and why it's so powerful for you to use and learn. If you draw a line between your thoughts and your results, you're going to see a connection. The results are always evidence of the original thought. So for the example I shared, my client was thinking she's very disrespectful with everyone's time. She doesn't care about anyone. She's self-absorbed. And this is why the projects weren't succeeding. Her result was she was being very disrespectful with the team's time, as she was now being withdrawn and not contributing in a productive way, which meant the team's meetings were being very unproductive. They weren't moving ahead with the projects. These were the exact things that she was projecting were going to happen as a result of her boss's behavior. But here's the really interesting and amazing part, and quite scary at times for us to understand. When your mind thinks a thought of how something is supposed to work, what the outcome they think is going to happen, it makes this come true. And it does that using the resources that it has available and the things which are in its control. And we learned this before. What's in its control? Your behavior, your choices, your actions, your feelings, to prove you right. But now it is you that is creating the exact situation that you were so frustrated about or disappointed about or fearful of. So take a moment and reflect upon your self-coaching model and ask yourself how your thoughts about the situation are currently impacting the outcome and the results that you are getting. Because what this is showing us is that it is the meaning you attach to the circumstance that makes the difference. Now, if like most of my clients who have been through this process and can see that they have an opportunity to start changing the results in their situation, I want to show you how to do this. So I want you to revisit your original circumstance. Now, this part is never going to change in the model because, as I said at the beginning, these are the facts of the situation, the things that aren't in our control. So now we're going to move to thoughts, and I want you to ask yourself, what authentic, truthful thought can you think about your situation which might offer a different, less judgmental view of the situation? Now, this can't just be you saying something positive when deep down you don't really believe that to be true. It won't work. It has to be an honest thought. So, if you look at my example, the original thought of my client was she is disrespectful with other people's time, she doesn't care, she's self-absorbed, and it's impacting the projects. Now, if you look at these objectively and ask yourself how many of these thoughts are based on facts and how many of them are based on assumptions, this is going to help you decide what thoughts you want to change. Because when we realize that we're making a lot of assumptions about a situation, and we are attaching meaning to those assumptions, this helps us explore a new narrative. So what did she think instead? She thought, my boss isn't very strong at time management. This happens to be something I am strong in, and I'm going to use this as an opportunity to step up and show my capabilities. None of us are perfect. And if this isn't her strength, I want to be able to provide the team with consistency and structure that they need to succeed on these projects, which I loved. She really, really got to the heart of what her thoughts were on this one, her true, authentic thoughts, and where there was an opportunity to grow. Now, as I said, this isn't about trying to put a positive spin on something. This isn't about trying to shine a turd, pretending something is positive when it isn't. But if you're asking yourself really what assumptions that you're making about this situation, about your thinking, and am I really in control of that? And what meaning do I really want to add to this situation about the elements that I am in control of? This is going to help you define a much different narrative. Now that you have your new alternative thought written down, I want you to ask yourself, how do you feel when you think this new thought? So if you need to pause and really take some time to reflect upon this new thought that you really, really believe and think about with this situation, please do. And then I want you to write down how you feel about it. Write down these new feelings, these new alternative feelings to your new alternative thought. So with my client's example, her new thought was, my boss isn't very strong at time management. This happens to be something I'm really strong in, so I'm going to use it as an opportunity to step up and show my capabilities. None of us are perfect, and if this isn't her strength, I want to be able to provide the team with consistency and structure so that we can progress with our projects. When she thought these thoughts about the situation, the circumstance of her boss being late to meetings regularly, she said she felt empowered, calm, empathetic, clear, and in control. So what do you feel about your situation? Now take a look at the actions which follow these thoughts and feelings. How are your actions different when you think and you go on a different trajectory of thinking about your circumstance? So in my example, when my client felt empowered, clear and empathetic, and clear and in control, she arrived at the meeting with clarity about what she wanted to cover off. She was happy to proceed with the team on necessary items while they awaited her manager's arrival. So her actions have been very different. Previously, she was withdrawing, she was resentful, and she was distant in the meetings. Now she's going in with a really clear idea about what she wants to cover off, what she's in control of, and progressing with the items that she's capable of during the time that she has available. And so lastly, thinking about the results which are occurring from this new line of thinking. So I want you to write down your own actions, and now I want us to reflect upon the results that are happening. So with my client, she reflected that her results were she was now demonstrating to the team and the organization what she was capable of, and that she was a driven and organized member of staff who was willing and able to drive meeting productivity and ensure that they kept projects on track. So this has shifted really significantly from, as I said, her being very withdrawn, not contributing to meetings, her behavior impacting productivity and impacting the projects, to now she is being seen as someone who's driven and organized and a leader within her meetings. So I want you to think about your situation. I want you to write down how your results have changed. Once again, draw a line from your thoughts to your results and look at the synergy between the two. Our thoughts create our results. What this coaching method teaches us is that if you aren't liking an outcome you are getting in your life, it's not to do with the external circumstance. It's to do with the quality of our thoughts of the situation and the meaning we are attaching to these events and circumstances. If you don't like the outcomes you are getting, ask yourself, what thoughts am I thinking? What meaning am I giving to these circumstances which are no longer serving me? And what can I truthfully think instead? I hope you found this really helpful. I highly recommend you practice this process on a regular basis. And if you are someone who manages staff, this is a great group exercise to go through if there are team challenges that you're experiencing. It can really help shift everyone's focus from external circumstances to seeing themselves as a victim of the external circumstance, to focusing on things that are inside of their control, which is their thoughts, their behaviors, their actions. If you would like to discuss this method and your particular challenges that you're experiencing in more detail, please reach out and sign up to a complimentary 30-minute discovery call where you and I can talk about your specific needs in one-on-one. Thank you so much for listening. I really look forward to hearing your thoughts on the self-coaching method. Please feel free to send me any of your questions to rebecca@thedailyguru.com. And if you are enjoying the podcast, please pop over to iTunes and leave me a rating. This is extremely helpful in helping me reach more amazing women like yourself. Have a great week and good luck using the self-coaching model.